What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you don't already know me, my name is Ayman and I run the page The Frack Stop here on YouTube as well as on TikTok and on Instagram. Today's video is going to follow a very similar style to my last video where I unboxed and talked about a bunch of hyped up Middle Eastern fragrances. If you guys watched the last video, you know that I was just coming from summer vacation where I was celebrating finishing a semester at medical school the best way I know how to, which is by blind buying a bunch of fragrances. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing today. I blind bought these 5 fragrances that you see in front of you. So we're just going to be talking about each one of these fragrances and discussing them and giving my first impression on them. So grab a snack, grab a drink, and enjoy this yap session about these fragrances. Luckily this time I did get the chance to try all of these fragrances out, so I'm going to be able to talk about the dry down, I'm going to be able to talk about the performance and the projection of this fragrance, and overall give my opinion on whether I think these fragrances are worth it or not. Really quickly, let's go through the fragrances I bought, starting with this one, which is Wave Child by Room 1015. This one's been getting a lot of hype on TikTok, on Instagram. Everyone is raving about this fragrance, so I had to blind buy it because there was no place for me to try this fragrance out. That's number one. Number two is a fragrance that's been hyped up for a couple summers now, and that's Lorenzo Pazzaglia's Summer Hammer. Apparently, this is the best fruity fragrance on the market, so let's see if it is. Next, we have Radical Rose by Matière Premiere, and this is the Extrait de Parfum line. Everybody knows I love Matière Premiere fragrances, and I was really excited to get my hands on this fragrance. And then we have my first ever Bond number 9 fragrance, and that's Lafayette Street. This is the one that everyone recommended to me to buy. Everyone said that this was the most blind buy safe, so let's see if they know what they're talking about. And the fragrance that just fell and thankfully did not break is Gritty's Mango Oud. Now, I love mango fragrances. I do find them a little bit too sweet sometimes, and apparently this one is not as sweet as some of the other mango fragrances. So let's talk about it and see if it actually lives up to the hype. So let's just start with Wave Child and move our way down. This is in no particular order. I will let you guys know which one of these is my favorite at the end of the video, but we're just going to start with Wave Child right away. So here it is. Here's the bottle. Beautiful blue round bottle. I have sprayed this. I have given it a full wear, but we're going to spray it on our arm just for the review's sake. But as soon as you spray this, you get this beautiful, sweet, very tart-like watermelon opening. Some people say that the opening reminds them of a watermelon Jolly Rancher. Now, I've never had a watermelon Jolly Rancher, or even a Jolly Rancher for that matter, but I will say that this stuff reminds me a lot of the 5 watermelon gum. This stuff is just, it's sweet, it's aquatic, and it does smell like a watermelon, and anyone who tells you different is just a liar. I think the watermelon opening is definitely the best part of this fragrance. However, the problem with this fragrance is that the watermelon opening only lasts around 20 to 30 minutes, and then this fragrance quickly dries down to a very creamy, very sunscreen-like fragrance. I think it's the coconut mixed in with the sweet and aquatic notes in this fragrance, which makes it smell a little bit like sunscreen and a little bit like lotion. And this is exactly why I do not like coconut in fragrances. This is the only fragrance I have in my collection that has some coconut in it, and the reason is because coconut always dries down into a lotion or into a sweaty smell on my skin. So even though I absolutely love the opening of this fragrance, the dry down really lets this fragrance down for me. And honestly, I have to say that I don't think this was a good or successful blind buy. However, I definitely do think that a lot of people love this coconut-like quality. They love the smell of coconut on their skin, and they just love these creamy-like fragrances. So I think a lot of people will like this one. And so I gotta say, if you're looking to buy Wave Child, I definitely recommend you try it before you buy it and let it dry down properly, or just buy a sample before you buy a full bottle, because it's definitely not what I expected. It's so sad because I think if the opening of this fragrance lasted longer than 20 to 30 minutes, I really think this would have been a top 3 summer fragrance for me, because the opening is just so good in my opinion. And it's so good that I really considered keeping this fragrance and then just applying it multiple times throughout the day, because the opening is just that magical for me. And like I said, I did give this a full wear, so in terms of the performance, I did get around 5 to 6 hours with decent projection. Nothing too crazy, which is exactly what you would expect from a summer fragrance, and especially an aquatic, sweet, fruity summer fragrance at that. So overall, not bad, but definitely a try before you buy. Next, we're going to move on to Lorenzo Pazzaglia's Summer Hammer. Now, this is a fragrance that I've been dying to add to my collection. I absolutely love fruity fragrances. However, a lot of them smell too feminine or too synthetic in my opinion. For example, Xerjoff's Herba Pura. I used to love that fragrance, but the more I wore it, the more synthetic, the more feminine it started leaning, and so I had to get rid of it, and ever since that fragrance, I've been looking for an alternative fruity fragrance. This is where this fragrance comes in because apparently this is one of the best fruity fragrances for the summertime. We're gonna also give this one a quick spray on the arm, this time on my forearm. So I already know what this stuff smells like, and I've already tried this stuff out and given it a full wearing, so I'm gonna talk based on that experience. Now this opens up with a bunch of different fruits. There's not one fruit that like predominates and I can really like pinpoint. It's just a beautiful, very smooth blend of a bunch of fruits. And I will be honest, even though I think this is very, very beautifully blended and the fruits really are mixed in really, really well, it does smell a little bit synthetic to my nose. However, not as synthetic as Xerjoff's Erba Pura. So if you love the smell of Erba Pura, but the synthetic notes kind of get to you, or you think it's a little bit too cloying or a bit too sweet, this one I think really fixes it up and makes it a lot better. There's not really much else I could talk about the DNA of this fragrance. It smells exactly like you would imagine a fruity fragrance to smell like. But the magic is that it just blended so well. It's not too cloying, it's not too sweet, and it's not too feminine. And I'm just realizing by looking at the bottle that there is a picture of a coconut on the bottom right of the fragrance. And I just said that this is the only coconut fragrance in my collection. So I think this one might have some coconut in there. I'll put the notes somewhere on the screen for you guys to see, but I'm not sure if this has coconut or not because I really don't pick up on the coconut. Like I said, everything is so well blended, you really don't pick up on one specific fruit or one specific note with this fragrance. Now, the real magic of this fragrance, in my opinion, is that it is an extrait de parfum, meaning the oil concentration in this fragrance is higher than your typical EDP or EDT fragrance, which should help with the performance and the projection of the fragrance. And let me just say, this stuff is a beast. This stuff stuck onto my skin like a tattoo. Easily 12 hours performance. It lasts super, super long, which is absolutely beautiful for a fruity fragrance and beautiful for a summer fragrance, which usually doesn't really last that long. But you'll easily get a lot of performance and a lot of projection with this fragrance, especially in the high heat. There was a day in Canada where it was around 40 degrees Celsius and this stuff was just radiating off my skin and it smelled so, so good. So overall, really, really happy with this fragrance, and I would say that it's a successful blind buy, and I definitely do recommend it if you like fruity fragrances. For the most part, fruity fragrances all smell the same. This one is just a more well done, more well blended, and less synthetic version of a fruity fragrance. So if you are looking for a fruity fragrance, I definitely recommend Lorenzo Pizzaglia's Summer Hammer. We're now going to move on to the big boy, Radical Rose by Matiere Premier. Like I said in the beginning of this video, I absolutely love the Matiere Premier fragrance house. I think it is super, super underrated and they make some beautiful, beautiful stuff. And this fragrance is definitely an example of the beautiful fragrances that Matiere Premier makes. Now, just like the name suggests, this is a rose fragrance, but to me, it is so much more than just a typical rose fragrance. We're gonna give this one a spray on the opposite arm, right on my hand, and give it a quick smell. Oh my God. And oh my God, does this stuff smell beautiful. Spoiler alert, this is my favorite one out of all of these. This stuff is just so, so well done. So what do you get when you spray this one? You get a very, very dark, earthy, and smoky rose fragrance. The darkness in this fragrance, which I think comes from the patchouli, is very, very well balanced by the sweet floral rose and makes for a beautiful, very, very well balanced rose fragrance. Now, why am I so excited about a rose fragrance? Because let's not kid ourselves. Rose fragrances usually smell very, very similar. But like I said, that combination of darkness and sweet floral rose notes really, really balance this fragrance out. And when I say well balanced, I mean that this fragrance doesn't lean too feminine and isn't too sweet, which is typical for most rose fragrances. I love the smell of rose, but it always, always, always smells too sweet and it always smells too feminine. And this one corrected it and made it a little bit more unisex, even a bit more masculine in my opinion. And overall, just a very, very beautiful fragrance that I am so, so happy to add to my collection. And in terms of the performance and the projection, oh boy, this stuff is a monster, even stronger than Lorenzo Pizzaglia's Summer Hammer. This is an extrait de parfum, which is why it comes in this all black bottle as opposed to the EDPs, which come in a white bottle. Here's the two for comparison. I think the black bottle looks a lot better and a lot sleeker, but it does have a difference. This is an extrait de parfum, like I said. And because it is an extrait de parfum, this stuff is mega, mega, mega strong. I am not even joking when I say that this stuff lasts for days on clothes. I remember wearing this out and spraying it on my clothes and I could still smell it when I was packing my bag a couple days later. And on skin, you're gonna get easily 12 to 14 hours with a lot, and I mean a lot of projection. And so I would definitely recommend this fragrance to anyone who's looking for a more masculine or a very unisex rose fragrance. And I definitely think this is the best rose fragrance on the market right now. Moving on to my first ever Bond number 9 fragrance. I'm gonna take this off just so that it doesn't fall like it did in the beginning of the video. So Lafayette Street by Bond number 9. Like I said, this is my first ever Bond fragrance. A lot of people recommended I get this one for my first ever Bond fragrance because a lot of their fragrances are polarizing and I really didn't want to take an L with my first fragrance from this house. So Lafayette Street is the one they recommended. Judging off the black bottle, I thought this would be a dark, very sweet fragrance, but it's actually quite the opposite because I found this to be a very fresh barbershop fragrance. Let's give it a quick spray on skin. And here's the atomizer, decent atomizer, and give it a smell. And yeah, as soon as you spray this, you definitely think it's a barbershop fragrance. It's a little bit fresh. It has an apple top note, which I definitely pick up on. And then it has a sort of like creaminess in the background, giving it that barbershop-like feel. And at first spray, I wasn't really that amused by this fragrance, and I definitely thought that I took an L with this one because it just didn't smell very unique or something crazy that warrants the high price tag that Bond number 9 fragrances cost. But nonetheless, I gave this fragrance a try and I gave it a full wearing, and I gotta say that as the stuff dried down, it really got a lot better in my opinion. Because a lot of that freshness and barbershop-like feel of this fragrance quickly dried down, and I was left with a very beautiful vanilla, amber, apple fragrance. But the vanilla amber dry down was definitely not your typical sweet, cloying vanilla and amber combination. It was definitely a little bit more fresh because of the apple, and made this fragrance really, really versatile. I think you could definitely wear this stuff as a signature scent all year round. I definitely think it works in the summer. I did wear it in the summertime and it wasn't too cloying, and I definitely think that it smelled really, really nice. And yeah, it just kept getting better and better as it dried down, and it really saved this fragrance because I really thought I took an L with this one. I still have to say that if you are thinking of picking up this fragrance, I definitely think you should. I'll still say though, I will still say though, I think Bond number 9 fragrances are really, really expensive for what they offer. I don't think I would recommend this fragrance to anyone who's getting it at retail price or even at some discounters prices. I think if you are going to go for Lafayette Street specifically, try and get it below $200. That's what I think it's worth. Anything more, I think the fragrance isn't really worth that much. It isn't too complex. It isn't anything crazy. It's just a very nice barbershop fresh fragrance. Even the performance and the projection were nothing crazy. I was only getting around 6 hours, maybe 7 hours with okay projection. Moving on now to another very, very hyped up summer fragrance, and that's Mango Oud by Gritty. And before we talk about this fragrance, let's take a moment to admire the beautiful bottle. Perfect for a summer fragrance. It definitely gives off that summer vibe. Now let's give this one a quick spray on my arm. And man, the opening of this fragrance is so bad. Just like Lafayette Street, as soon as I sprayed this, I started to feel regret. My pockets started to hurt, and I was about to swear off blind buying completely. I don't know what it is, but the opening of this fragrance smells really, really bad. To me, it smells like nail polish. I really got scared when I sprayed this one, but after a couple minutes, the fragrance dried down, and thankfully the fragrance got a lot better. That sweet, very tart, very fruity, very sticky mango started to come in and really freshened up the fragrance. And what was surprising was that as soon as the mango note comes in, you also pick up on the oud in the background of this fragrance, which smells a little bit smoky, a little bit incensey. And I know it sounds weird for a summer fragrance to have a combination of fruits and oud. I know that's typically reserved for winter fragrances, for example, Oud Maracuja, which is a passion fruit and oud fragrance. But in this fragrance, the oud is definitely different. It's definitely not as strong and not as nuclear as it is in Oud Maracuja. The oud definitely takes a backseat in this fragrance, but it's still definitely noticeable. The mango is, like I said, very fruity, very sticky, very sweet, and very beautiful. And the oud really balances out this fragrance in my opinion. It prevents the fragrance from becoming too cloying, which is a problem with a lot of the mango fragrances that I've tried out, like God of Fire by Stefan Humbert Lucas. Even though I love this fragrance, I have to be in the right mood to wear it because the mango sometimes gets a little bit too sweet and a little bit too cloying. But because of the addition of oud in this fragrance, I think it will never be too sweet or too cloying for me to wear. And I really think I enjoy fruity scents when they are well balanced and the sweetness is kept in check by another note like woody notes, oud notes, or even leather notes. I will say that this fragrance does lean a little bit feminine, so I'm just letting you guys know. I personally don't mind, but I think it does lean a little bit feminine. Overall, yeah, very beautiful mango fragrance and something I definitely think I'm going to enjoy wearing a lot this summer. The performance on this one is just like Wave Child. It's not too strong, but it's not too weak. You're getting around 5 to 6 hours with very strong projection, which I think comes from the oud in this fragrance. So if you follow me on TikTok, you'd think we are done. No more fragrances that I blind bought, but actually you'd be wrong. Since you guys are on YouTube, I will give you guys a sneak peek into 2 new fragrances that I blind bought. And number 1 is this Matiere Premier's Crystal Saffron. This is another extrait de parfum from Matiere Premier, just like the Radical Rose. And this was a fragrance that I really have been looking forward to add to my collection for so long. Ever since I tried the EDP version of this fragrance, I've been wanting to add it to my collection. And really quickly, this is a beautiful saffron and musk fragrance, and it's really hard to describe because saffron sometimes smells a little bit metallic or a little bit too sweet, and musk smells super different on everyone's skin, but it's a combination of saffron and musk. This is definitely not a blind buy safe fragrance. Definitely try this one before you buy it. And I do want to talk a moment about why I bought the Extrait de Parfum and not the EDP. So 2 reasons. Number 1, I wanted a fragrance to match the Radical Rose that I already bought. And number 2, I did feel like the Extrait de Parfum did have a little bit more depth than the original EDP. They both still have that main like saffron and musk combination, but I think this one just has a little bit more oomph to it, a little bit more strength to it as well. Even though both are very strong and just performance monsters, they both project insanely loudly and just, I don't know, I felt like the Extrait de Parfum felt a little bit more special, and so this was the one that I ended up buying. And then finally, the last fragrance that I bought, which again is not a complete blind buy, that's why it's not really in front of us, and that's Parfums de Marly's Castly. Now I did try this one in the store and I do have a sample of it, but it's still not here, it's still being shipped. I did pre-order it and it's about to come in around, I think, a week. I didn't want to pay retail for it, so I had to find a discounter that supplies it because there's no way I'm paying retail for a Parfums de Marly fragrance. But Parfums de Marly's Castly really surprised me, and it really smelled absolutely beautiful. I will be posting a TikTok and a YouTube short on my review of Parfums de Marly's Castly when it gets here. But really quickly, based off my sample and based off what I tried in the store, it smells like a drier, less fresh version of Parfums de Marly's Sedley. It definitely has a lot of the same notes as Sedley because it has that same ambroxan and that same fizziness that Sedley does. But I also will say that I do think Castly has a combination of 3 fragrances, and that's Sedley, Bois Imperial, and Louis Vuitton's Imagination. Now, why am I saying it has a combination of all 3 fragrances? That's because even though this has the same notes as Sedley, just without the citruses, and the same metallicness from Bois Imperial and the pepper from Bois Imperial, it also has an added neroli note, which I think is very similar to the neroli note in Louis Vuitton's Imagination. And then another thing I noticed is that when I sprayed this fragrance on my skin in the store, it lasted me the whole day. I'm talking about like 10, 11, 12 hours, which is very surprising and unheard of for a Parfums de Marly fragrance. Most of these fragrances only last like 6, 7, maybe even 8 hours. So I really hope my bottle lasts as long as the bottle that's in store, because that sample lasted a really long time. But yeah, guys, if you have any of these fragrances, please let me know what you think of them. Let me know what you think of this haul. What do you think of the fragrances I purchased? Do you think this was a W or an L? And I'll catch you guys in the next video.